Hi guys, hope you're good. I'm on this trek, this morning walk to the marketplace, but I thought since I'm going to spend money, we can talk about money. Now there's this excitement in Africa because of Ndiaye's announcement. Ndiaye is the spokesperson for the French government. Following the press conference held by, Alassane Ouattara, the Ivory Coast president, and Emmanuel Macron, the French president. There was a big announcement. After colonization of Africa, France still had, vestiges, of French colonial domination in Africa. And one strong vestige was they had this exploitative, currency bill. Currency structure with their 14 colonies, where they were obligated to bank with the French bank their foreign exchange reserve, right? I'll talk about it just loosely. So anyway, this was an idea enacted in 1945, December 26, 1945. And the French people then felt like what they created, the African Financial Community, as they called it, should have one currency that, the French can still benefit from. Anyway, there is good news in Africa, but news that should be received with suspicion. Because normally when you see such moves that are half-assed, not completely clear, then you should receive them with caution. It's good news because it's success of a negotiation, in December last year. In Ivory Coast, the French Western leaders of the West African Monetary Union, had this historical reform talk, a reform of that monetary operation that had led to that CFA Franc, that currency. The CFA, by the way, is the one used by the West African Monetary Union. Those are 8 of the 14 French colonies. Then there is the XAF that is used by the other 6 to make 14. So this deal was actually a deal for the CFA. So only 8 countries benefit from this good news. Otherwise, the other colonies are still fucked. So Africa still has work to do. Anyway, so the much awaited bill ratifying the end of this CFA franc was adopted on Wednesday last week, by the French, council ministers, and it's good news. This, however, brings up a question of, so if the CFA is dissolved, what becomes of what's the new currency? So because these 8 countries are in West Africa, there's already been some form of a movement towards a currency called the ECO by the ECOWAS. The ECOWAS is the amalgamation of the economic communities of the West African countries, and they had suggested a currency called the ECO. Problem is the ECO had well stipulated guidelines on who qualifies, and none of these countries qualify for those guidelines, But even before we talk about the ECO, the good news, well, it ends the centralization of foreign exchange reserves of these victim countries, with the French treasury. The central bank of these 8 West African states, CBWAS, is no longer mandated to deposit half of, because it used to be a bigger percentage, but now it's half of its forex exchange reserves with the French bank, But we need to push, we need to have more pressure. France needs to withdraw its presence from the government bodies, because France was sitting on the monetary boards of these countries, which was obnoxious. But yeah, it was happening. It's ridiculous how, the West claims to be a liberal, free human rights world, and yet they continue to do such stupid things in Africa. Yeah, so they were saying about the value of the ECOWAS, that they'll maintain the fixed parity of the CFA and the future ECO with the euro. But this is funny, because basing a currency on another currency is the same enslavement that we are trying to condemn. It's the same enslavement we have to call. Now, the work is not yet done, Africa. We must demand the same for the XAF. That's the equivalent of that, oppressive French Central African currency. It's the equivalent of that French oppressive currency in Central Africa, in other words. And 6 states are still affected in that Central African, economic monetary union. We need these countries free. We need DRC free, especially. The French love DRC because it's arguably the wealthiest country in Africa. They need to give up DRC. We need DRC. Africa needs DRC free, economically free. We need Gabon free. We need Chad free. We need Equatorial Guinea free. We need Cameroon free. We need the Central African Republic free. These guys here are regulated by the Bank of Central African States, but it's also, very much just a pawn for the Bank of France. They need to also be freed, So now let's go back to talk about the ECO. What's obviously at risk with this announcement is, of course, currency credibility and price stability, And that's why we're talking about the fixed exchange rate, that parity with the euro, But that's enslaving. Because you see, so long as you maintain these colonial African currencies that we still have in Africa today, you still have to deal with still have to deal with the bad deflation. You have to deal with the deficit of GDP. You know, you still have to deal with the debt, and no African country really then would qualify for even, for example, the ECOWAS's terms of convergence, the criteria for convergence, because the ECOWAS criteria for convergence is deficit of less than 3%, that's GDP deficit, inflation less than 10%, you know, and the debt worth less than 70% of GDP. So you can imagine, we're talking debt worth less than 70% and none of these countries. So these countries are totally indebted. And then, so you can see the ulterior motive of France. France knows it has impoverished these countries beyond their ability to pay this debt. So now it sets them free so that they can join in with the rest of Africa and you know, quench the other African countries dry. You know, this is the ulterior motive that you need to be careful about. You know, Africa must help free these countries and will help free these countries. But for Africa to be able to help free these countries, we have to unite. That's the first thing. We have to unite. A united Africa is a strong Africa. Second of all, is we need to start up an African currency. In my videos, I like to refer to it as the Afro. The Afro will not be seeking parity or exchangeability with any of the existing European currencies for now. The Afro will be strictly a continental currency. You understand? It must be totally detached from colonial debts, you know, and literally sold, marketed at the individual level, you know. Individual productivity. There's a term I coined called gross capital product. How much each individual produces, not gross domestic product. We shall calculate that later when Africa can calculate a GDP based off the Afro. Before that, the Afro is based on capital product, gross capital product per annum. And this should encourage anyone that wants to benefit from the Afro to take up responsibility, any African to take up responsibility and begin working hard, because you need to grow your capital product, you know, your domestic capital product. Because again, remember, the Afro, its exchangeability will be continental, you know, local to Africa. And the stability will be determined by that individual trust. And later we shall amalgamate that with the African local enterprise, the continental enterprise, you know. And when we feel comfortable with this currency after we've reached a critical mass of use, then we can see how to begin negotiating a way to exchangeability with other players internationally, you know. And no one should bully us over that, because when the dollar was being created from the Spanish peso, did they consult? No. Did they pay back the debts, the colonial debts? No, because colonialism is all just theft. We all know colonialism is theft. It's a forced attack. So all the deals based on colonialism are deemed null and void by default of colonialism is based off oppressive human rights abuse, anything criminal can't justify debts. So we can't base our new baby currency on that colonial economy arrangement. You know, if they don't want to accept that our exchangeability, they will lose out. You know, they will lose out because that's how we trade, and Africa is the starting point of the value chain. We have the raw materials, or we have most of them. They have some, but we have most of them. And most of these countries, even if they won't admit, are very dependent on Africa. But if they are not, then good for them. They will be free from our currency. But that's what we shall do, you know. And if we have to accept their currencies, they must accept ours. If they don't exchange with our currency, we don't exchange with theirs. That's it, you know. Leverage is our raw materials. That's the value chain. And that's how you trade with Africa. Trade with Africa, you trade with Afro. But that will be something legislated later, you know. For now, look at a personal currency, you know. That's what we must base individual productivity. That's it. You know? So today, I guess the word I'll leave you with is gross capital product, which is the output of each individual. That's what we base on for acceptability. That's one of the bases for acceptability of the Afro, you know. And that's how we start. We'll get into other issues of the Afro when that time comes, but this is just food for thought. Okay, thanks guys. I'm breaking a sweat. It was a good walk. I'll catch you on much more serious topics. Cheers.